further ado, I'd like to introduce the session chairperson and moderator, the speakers, and the panelists for this segment. As I read out their names, I'd like to warmly welcome them to join us and take their seats on stage. Our session chairperson and moderator is Ms. Indivari Amuvatta, Head of English News at Adhaderana. A warm welcome to you to please join us on stage. We have our first speaker who will be joining us virtually, and he will stay on for the Q&A, and that is Mr. Suranga Herath, CEO, English Tea Shop. Our second speaker who is here with us, we'd like to invite him to join us, Mr. M.N.M. Ziad, Chief Executive Officer, Innovative Smart Solutions, Oman. A warm welcome to you to take your seat on stage. Our panelists include the following. We have Mr. Satish Nadaraja, Executive Vice President Finance, Al Ghurair Foods LLC from Dubai. We have our next panelist, Dr. Tilini Sumudu Kumari, Deputy Director, Department of Supervision of Non-Bank Financial Institutions at the Central Bank of Sri Lanka. A warm welcome to you. Our next panelist is Mr. Talal Rafi, who is Economist, Director Consulting at Ernst & Young. And we also have our final panelist, Mr. Vikum Navagamuvage, who is founder and CEO of Santani Wellness Resorts. So a warm welcome now to all of our esteemed panelists to join us on stage. We will begin with the presentations. Our first speaker, as already mentioned, will be joining us online. His session is on Economic Export Complexity Index for Sri Lanka. You have a related paper on your tables. So let's welcome on screen Mr. Suranga Herath, CEO of English Tea Shop. Let's take a look.
Good morning, Suranga.
Good morning, Samant.
We are missing you at this Mi Summit 12 in Colombo, but I'm personally proud, as a country, we are proud that you are showcasing Sri Lanka more than your company at a global scale in UK. Would you like to say something about that? The large audience would be interested.
First of all, my deepest apologies for not being there in person. I really wanted to. But this session, I think, was important to us as a whole, as you said, for the country as well. So it's a forum on responsible sourcing and ethical trade happening in London on the 19th and the 20th, and I'm one of the 25 odd speakers there. So it's a subject that's very close to my heart, ethical sourcing. And I think it's a privilege and it's an honor to be presenting our story and also Sri Lanka's story and Sri Lankan people, about Sri Lankan people, which we're going to touch about today as well, I guess. So I think it's a blessing that I'm able to do both a little bit, virtually here and then personally, physically in the UK.
Wonderful. Anyway, we don't miss you, at least virtually.
Yes, I'm looking forward to connecting at least at the panel discussions, or I'll be available for questions.
Excellent. So, while congratulating you, Suranga,
thank you.
I would like to ask, in this Mi Summit, the whole theme is all about bringing the management X factor for Sri Lanka, maneuvering and leading.
Yeah.
So this is session 2. But I have listened to you. I have been very much exploring the line that you are developing, this export complexity index, how it is value significant. If any company, industry or Sri Lanka as a whole, like if you are not focusing on that, we can't find the X factor. I'm sure you have something to share with that.
Exactly. It has been my belief since at least 2017, 2018. You and I have been talking about it several times, but inside the business and also outside of it at many conferences, we've introduced the concept of following the export complexity index. But I haven't really seen much being done or much being spoken about it. Maybe we are at fault as well. So export complexity index is something the Harvard Growth Labs have been, publishing, carrying out for about 2 decades now. It's very, very useful if you kind of dig deep into it and try to understand how those, calculations and rankings are done and then what you can take out of it. Simply put, it's a measure. If you look at a country level, it measures countries of the world on the level of differentiation and sophistication, which they believe leads to a form of complexity. And then when you have high exports complexity based out of high differentiation and high sophistication, the country is able to stand out in relation to others. And then it directly connects with things like your per capita income or the country's income level as a whole, and the product level contribution, the country has basically towards its growth. And it also focuses very much on differentiation, innovation, and talks about related differentiations and unrelated differentiations. It matters a lot, if you kind of really dive deep into it. We did for the last so many years, and we kind of, used that and adopted some of the principles in our business as well. Simply put, I think what does a country go through when you're overly commodity driven? And it proves the fact that ubiquity or omnipresence or commonly shared platforms, commonly shared product lines leads to trading down and pricing wars. And, that leads to countries staying, quite low in these rankings, and obviously quite low in the, whole development index. And the countries don't progress. The other thing is it also gives countries, when you kind of start playing around with that toolkit and, move things around, you're able to kind of work out what is best in terms of differentiation. Should a country get to related differentiation or unrelated differentiation? And then how would you look at new products being introduced, and what should governments and policymakers back in order to get the maximum value addition towards, especially per capita income. So the focus for me is, for me especially, is that we use this to prove that when your export complexity is high through high level of sophistication and innovation, you're able to transfer more wealth and knowledge across your value chain. So you lift the entire country up.
Oh, that's a fabulous thing. Wonderful. Brilliant. Brilliant, Surang. I think that is very succinctly you have put it to the spotlight now. As you know, this is a Mi Summit. The people are looking for insights. You are very committed to prepare a small note also for the audience. It's available for them. Would you like to highlight these key areas which they should focus on? Would you like to concentrate on that?
Yeah, again, I'm sorry I'm not able to be there in person. So this is why I thought we'll keep the initial address short, and then, this note probably should help you all delve a little deeper. And, explaining this is a very complex issue, as complex as the exports complexity index. So we've, over the last couple of years kind of developed a little model, and I think there is no rocket science in the model, but I think there is something unique in the model. It's a 4-pillar model, and this 4-pillar model is described in the note that's in your hands now. Has at the onset the whole planetary crisis, because if we keep doing what we do at this current rate, even if we don't grow, we will need 2 planets by 2100, and I think it might even be sooner than that because of the growth that we are seeing. This has been spoken quite a lot around the world and in Sri Lanka. So I don't think I have to go deep into this, but what we've kind of seen is that this whole planetary challenge poses opportunity as well, right? So we'll kind of look at it after I introduce the four pillars. So the second pillar is about again, another subject everyone's talking of, the Industrial Revolution 4.0, the impending 5.0. Is that a huge challenge? Does it pose opportunity, right? And then how would businesses kind of react to that is the second pillar. And the third pillar, which I think Sri Lanka has gotten wrong since decades ago, is the whole purpose piece, right? So we all call ourselves purpose-led businesses. We all think that Sri Lanka as a whole is a very purposeful country. But to me, I think this is our biggest weak link. So how do we repurpose ourselves and then, develop strategy and competitive advantage by doing the repurpose? And the fourth pillar is, I think, the most important thing for us Sri Lankans is harnessing the power of Sri Lankan people. So what we've created and what is shared with you is an idea that will be useful, whether we are a large exporter, small exporter, whether it's agriculture or technology, or whether we are traditional or new. How these four pillars can be redefined to bring out the export complexity. So for an example, if you look at the first pillar, the planetary challenge, yes, temperature levels are rising, biodiversity is collapsing, social inequalities are on the rise. But then there is also the opportunity, because when we repurpose a country like Sri Lanka, because we are never going to be a mass scale producer. Simple example would be, can we focus on premiumizing our offerings, whether it's services or even agriculture? to capture that top 10% of the global population that owns or that earns 52% of global income. And that has been shown as a systematic answers to the sustainability challenge, because if you refer to something like the Partha Dasgupta review, it talks about the pricing issue, the elephant in the room, that the global south needs proper price from the global north. And then the price should cover cost to biodiversity, damage to climate, and also, most importantly, paying proper price to social capital, which is not happening for the global south. So are we able to develop businesses that address these challenges in a way that gets us premium price, where the price includes cost to nature, cost to people? And if you look at the IR 4.0 or 5.0 pillar, we lift up the veil of ARs and VRs and AIs and IoTs. Inside that, we need to see it's a very social centric or people centric revolution. Now, this is what I try to explain in that note. Are we able to capitalize on that and build on authenticity, build on purpose-led, build on transparency, and then help us premiumize our position? So those two covered. The biggest weak link, as I said, is the third pillar, the starting with purpose. And this needs redefining, because every one of us will say our businesses are purpose-led, but I argue that, I kind of disagree with that. Sri Lanka is not purpose-led. Sri Lanka doesn't understand what purpose means, whether it's nation branding or whether it's our own brand. We're very weak in that. So how do we repurpose ourselves in the light of the planetary challenge and in the light of the opportunity or the challenge of the industrial revolution, which we are not playing a part at all, because we are, I think, still at the second revolution level. I don't think we're going to jump to the third revolution. The world is going towards the fifth. So are we able to repurpose our businesses, our country as a whole, and then design and develop strategy to give us competitive advantage through harnessing a fourth pillar that I kind of present, which I think is the most interesting one. And I'm sure you will also agree with me that the fourth pillar, which I describe as making social capital as our national asset, or at English Tea Shop, we call this as Prajava, the power of community, which is at the heart of the business, because we believe our product is not bought for designs or packaging or even the product itself, or Sri Lanka's unique tea for that matter. It's bought because of how we are bringing people out to the front, how market after market believes that English Tea Shop is a people story. It's not the brand name. It's not organic. It's not the taste. It's most of it is due to how the people are empowered and how people contribute. Prajava to us means I think that's the brand philosophy, and that's what we are known for. I wouldn't delve deep into it due to the lack of time, and also because it's available in the note. I think there is a huge opportunity for Sri Lankan brands to use the Prajava notion. You can call it anything you want, but from our perspective, our brand is renowned in every country that we are present for, on one hand, empowering people, but not just as a brand as empowering people, but more so about how these empowered people are creating magical solutions, and then market after market, we have this conversation. When they come to Sri Lanka, when they see our brands, when we meet them, the one topic that we always start or end a discussion is, who are these people? These are amazing people, and we haven't seen such qualities, such productivity. And, so we don't use traditional metrics of productivity. And when we looked at the whole model that we had created over the last 15 years and where we ended, we clearly see that our brand is known for our people. And then we tried relating that to Sri Lanka. I don't think we should be banking ourselves on Ceylon tea or Ceylon cinnamon and getting GIs on it and, tourism because we are a beautiful country. No. All these sectors should stand on its own and be unique to the world because of our unique people. And I think this is something that is terribly underrated in Sri Lanka, the power of our people. Our people are our social capital, but our national asset as well. So what if we use the previous three pillars, the understanding of those pillars, to repurpose the country by using people and empowering them the right way? Because imagine this, Germany has credibility for amazing technology, right? Japan is known for amazing precision and timeliness and quality and all that. What is Sri Lanka known for? Tea? Cinnamon? Is that what we want to be known for? because these things might be gone, in a generation or two. So what is that unique ability or skill or capability that can foster innovation and branding, especially for Sri Lanka, right? This is what we are very, very fond of, and this is why I think the fourth pillar is the most interesting one for Sri Lankans. If we get renowned for, this unique ability of Sri Lankan, something like, leading with values, thriving on purpose, and, conducting things with integrity. And if every business can be known, every brand can be known for a special Sri Lankan identity that is common now. That identity can be common. Everything else has to be unique from business to business. I think what has happened is the flip side of that. Our purposes are common, our strategies are common, and we are trying to learn together and, execute together. But I think it is the Sri Lankanness that has to be common. It is the people's values and integrity and purpose that we need to harness and take out, so that our tea to tourism to services to even new technology that comes in benefits from that immense people branding, nation branding, the Sri Lankanness, right? And then build branding, because branding has to be the future. The leapfrog in economy cannot be done by being just a part of a global value chain. I know that's part of a big strategy for Sri Lanka, but that wouldn't see us enhancing our per capita incomes or national wealth or reducing social inequalities. So if we want a leapfrog, we need new branding, and new branding has a common element of it, which is the people pillar that I speak of. And then a lot of unique, features coming from that purpose-led pillar, the third pillar. So uniqueness has to be there on the third pillar, and that common national branding has to be on people. And that's what I believe will help Sri Lanka get a big leapfrog.
Surang, I'm deeply touched with your more than pillars, because I'm sure you are very much known the factor to the audience. This conversation is happening at your premises. But you are coming out with a deep awakening message to all Sri Lankans. Hey, look, start, awaken, think beyond something like X Factor, which you are trying to articulate at this MI Summit. Having said that, now you want to get this out, and still that I would like to hear some like numbers or some key messages you would like to share with the audience for them to take home as a final thoughts.
100%. I think that's a very good question, because I probably should have mentioned some numbers at the beginning as well. Now, what keeps us awake and worried is the fact that how come Japan stays at the top of the export complexity index for 20 odd years, with a score of 2.26, which is like an extreme positive score of complexity. And how come countries like Korea, for example, leapfrogged 5 positions to come to number 2 position within like 5 years. Or 10 years, they've moved 5 positions up in 10 years. And how even mass scale producers, people, countries like China and India maintaining positions, relatively favorable positions and growing. The note explains their positions and their mix of product, and you will see them kind of changing somewhat of a transformation journey towards complexity or enhancing complexity with fairly decent positive scores. And what keeps me worried is how Sri Lanka is even going lower, because if you look at the last 10 years, Sri Lanka's export complexity have gone down, right? It's now a minus 0.24 according to the latest publication, which is very worrying, which proves that we are in a commodity trap, whether it's agriculture or tourism. And if we are to really move up from there, that to get that minus 0.24 to a proper plus score, and then get our ranking from the 77th position, if I remember right, to lower, a better ranking, we need this revamping. So this is why we think national approach is needed, and every one of us, whether we are a large conglomerate or a small and medium or a startup, we need to have that mindset of changing the score for all of our sectors, and being transitioning from minuses. Our tea is at a minus 1.96. Most of our apparel are at minus 1.2 to minus 1.7, 1.8. There is only tiny green shoots of positive sectors that we have introduced. And, I've explained this in the note, what should Sri Lanka do? And then, the Harvard Growth Labs themselves recommend approaches. There is a light touch approach, which means do incremental changes to what you're doing. which is good for China, which is good for India, because they still can, bank on what they have, their existing skills and resources and products, and go on. For Sri Lanka, they recommend a parsimonious approach. They are not recommending a radical revamp or a radical innovation approach, because we don't have the skill set, we don't have the capabilities, we don't have the training. So this is what is important. It's good to change, but you got to know how to change, because otherwise it's going to make matters worse, because you're moving from one end to the other end without having the right skill sets and capabilities. So parsimonious approach is less risky, but it involves some form of improvement for each of the product sectors you are in. We can still be a agriculture and apparel, tourism dependent nation. We can bring in our ICT, further, but then we can, when we start scoring ourselves for innovation, for sophistication, for differentiation, I think we will naturally lead to a growth path.
Once again, so deeply valued. Thank you so much, Suranga. Even though we are missing you in physical, I think we can catch you virtual there.
So that's the plan. So I think
somehow find time in midnight.
Timing should work for me. Yeah.
But your effort is not only showcase Sri Lanka in the world picture, and your message has a profound meaning for the country. I think that's the whole purpose of this the MI Summit, to take you through. I think this requires sometimes longer discussion.
Thank you. This is hard. Explaining this very complex subject needs a lot of, well thought out discussion. And I think I look forward to, having deeper, longer and better chats at, forums like these. So looking forward to connecting virtually.
Great. Once again, thank you so much. Deeply appreciated.
Thank you so much.
Well, we say thank you to Mr. Suranga Hera, the CEO of English Tea Shop, for giving us a wonderful opening conversation on leveraging export complexity for economic transformation in Sri Lanka. Now, if you do want to ask any questions to Mr. Suranga Hera or any of the panelists, you will see a QR code on screen. This QR code, if you direct your phone's camera to it, it will lead you to a link that will enable you to send in your questions, and our moderator will then take on your questions and direct it to the panelists. So once again, that's the QR code. Feel free to engage very actively and ask your questions to our panelists. With that being said, it's now my pleasure to introduce to you the next speaker on this session. And our next speaker will be talking to us about strategic and entrepreneurial insights for uplifting economic competitiveness. Our speaker is the Chief Executive Officer of Innovative Smart Solutions. Let's put our hands together, ladies and gentlemen, for Mr. M.N.M. Ziad.
President Cpm, keynote speaker, Chairman Dr. Samantha, the panelist, participants. Good morning to everybody. So I've been given a small task on explaining you all or giving some insights on economic competitiveness. So to start with, what is competitiveness? So it's how countries create the best economic and social environmental conditions for the economic development. It measures their policies, institutions, and productivity. Simply, this monitors the vital elements and benchmarks each nation on their performance. So striving for competitiveness is striving for rising prosperity, creating opportunities, improve how people live, and grow sustainably. So there are several components, especially around 12, but I'll be not going through all. I'll be just highlighting some of the key components. So to start with the institutions. So the rule of law and transparency, the ease of doing business, trade policies, and market openness, and intellectual property protection. The infrastructure, so it's mostly the transportation, which is road, ports, railway, and airports, the energy supply and efficiency, the digital infrastructure such as the broadband, the 5G networks, the digital backbone. So the macroeconomical stability is basically the inflation rates, debt to GDP, and fiscal policies. So education and health, where here the quality of education, the workforce skill and productivity, and availability of skilled laborers. The market efficiency, there is two categories, which is the labor market and the financial market. So when it comes to labor market, the employment rates, the labor law and regulations, the wage and productivity levels, and when it comes to financial, access to investment and venture capitals, strength of banking institutions, and stock market performance. So technology readiness. So technology is advancing every minute, I would say. So internet penetration like through e-commerce, then AI, blockchain, and cybersecurity adaptation, and digital transformation policies are some of the factors. And business sophistication is quality of business and the supply chain. Then innovation, which is linked with R&D. So the expenditure which is allocated for R&D, the number of patents that are filed, and the suitable environment for startups and entrepreneurs. So a strong innovation is more likely to be achieved with a healthy, well-educated and trained workforce. And the last one is the sustainability, where it is about green energy investments and ESG, which is environmental, social, and government factors. So some of the key indicators which was highlighted, this lies in the heart of a country's development. So when it comes to indexing, there are some indices which is in the global arena. So the Global Competitiveness Index, which is awarded by the World Economic Forum. This is the most widely recognized index. Then the World Competitiveness Ranking, which is awarded by the International Institute for Management Development, or which is also called as IMD. Then Ease of Doing Business, which is given by the World Bank, which is now discontinued. Then the Global Innovation Index. So where does Sri Lanka stand when it comes to these indices? So in 2019, Sri Lanka was 84th of the 141 countries, where the weaknesses were highlighted such as macroeconomic instability, corruption, limited technological adaptation, and the strengths were highlighted as the good health and primary education system in the nation. In the IMD rankings, Sri Lanka was ranked 61 from the 64 countries. The challenges were the 2022 crisis, weak government efficiency and business confidence, poor infrastructure, and technological readiness. And in 2020, Ease of Business Index, Sri Lanka was ranked 99th on 190 countries. And in the Global Innovation Index, Sri Lanka was 89th from 132 countries, where R&D and the investment in R&D was highlighted as very low. So looking forward, how can we change Mother Lanka to grow and thrive? So I've picked some of the X factors that we can focus to strengthen the economical competitiveness of Sri Lanka in the global arena. So investing in R&D to develop local relevant solutions such as agriculture and the use of AI and blockchain and IoT optimization into manufacturing, so, and collaboration with academia. So, like, we have to partner with academics, universities, when it comes to R&D. And we have to diversify the products, focus on the high demand sectors, and tap into international markets through the agreements. For example, with India, there's HAFTA and ETCA like agreements. So these agreements can be used to approach international markets. Reduce import dependency, manufacture raw materials in-house, try to use recycled waste, and leverage digital platforms to optimize distribution. And next, it's the workforce. So we have to upskill the employment through participating with platforms like the Sri Lankan Association for Software Service Companies and similar bodies, and promote gender inclusions. So upskilling employees is what we have seen in the Middle East, because I come from that background. When most of Sri Lankans, they come for interviews, the main thing that they lack, number one, is mostly the language. And number two is marketing themselves. Yes, Sri Lankans, we are very skillful, but where we fall short is that we fail to market ourselves into the recruiters. So that is where we fail. Whereas India and now even Philippines, okay, they stay very ahead in presentation skills. So yes, we have the skills, but Sri Lanka has to work on the presentation part, because we also face barriers to convince our managers or the companies, to convince them that yes, this is a skillful person, but the presentation is lacking. Then adaptation of ESG practices and invest in more solar and wind energy, and develop nature-based tourism ventures. So I recently finished my MBA in PIM, and one of our learning partners, he has also he's starting up a business which is agritourism, which is a huge plot of land with 22 odd cottages, so where agriculture is there, so it's agritourism. So these kind of arenas, Sri Lanka is based on cultures and our traditions, so we have to market based on our strengths. And I just arrived to Sri Lanka last night. In the flight I came, I'm happy to say there was more than 50% of tourists, and the customs were filled with tourists. So that's a very good thing to see. So Sri Lanka, I believe, is going in the right direction, but still we have some areas that we need to get ourselves through. So we have to partner with multinationals for outsourcing, so attract FDIs and engage in with Sri Lankans who are living abroad. So you all might know there are business initiatives in countries. So in Middle East, for example, there is in Dubai called the Sri Lanka Business Council. It has started in Oman as the Sri Lankan Business Council initiative in Oman. So this is linked with the Sri Lankan Chamber of Commerce here. So if you all have a solid product or an idea, there are investors in these countries who are willing to invest. So these kind of approaches has to be used and taken for advantage because the platforms are kept ready. So it is the matter of going through the right channels and getting these opportunities to action. And promoting tourism, again, and adopting crisis resilient models. So COVID-19 has taught us a good lesson. So which technology helped us to adapt to the situation. So it's not the last pandemic, so it might be something coming, so we should be ready with the technologies which is available. So, and create industry clusters for forming sector-based hubs. So not like industry-based, it is like a particular industry-based hubs has to be initiated, like for technology, agriculture, and likewise. And also incubators to support startups and entrepreneurs. And also highlighting the culture heritage and promoting Sri Lanka's cuisine, art, and tourism globally. So one thing that I see as a country that we lack is a very long-term vision. You can see Dubai, it's not one, they have two visions. So one is for 2030 and one is for 2040. So 2030, they are focusing on foster economic growth, technical innovation, and environmental stability and social advancement. And 2040, vibrant and healthy communities. So they have a very long vision and plans put to work on. And Oman also, where I reside, they have a 2040 vision, which was put in 2020 and planned on 2020, and it started action in 2021. It's based on National Development Strategy, and it is aimed to transform Oman into a developed nation with a knowledge-based economy and sustainable development and enhanced quality for its citizens. Saudi Arabia also has a vision of 2030, which they had established in 2016. Unfortunately, in Sri Lanka, we do not see such kind of long-term vision, as our keynote speaker also highlighted. To start with, at least Sri Lanka should come up with a solid 5-year vision, a statement, and then have policies, regulations, action plans listed and make sure those action plans are actioned. And as the next step, it can be a very longer, I know it is related to politics, but I think the turn has to happen somewhere so the country can come out of the well-known depth that we are in. So I'm just on my almost last slides. So as Michael Porter has mentioned in 1990 in one of his books, a nation's competitiveness depends on the capacity of its industry to innovate and upgrade. It was relevant in 1990, it is relevant today, and it will be relevant in the future. So this is something for us to keep in mind and Act. So when we work towards this competitiveness, what is the benefit out of it? So I would like to give a closing statement. Like, competitiveness is all about the hospitals that care for us, the schools that educate our children, the development of the technology that we take for granted, the roads we navigate, the financial markets that allow us to make critical investments, the prospects for employment, our present and future living standards, and all about creating a better life for everyone. Thank you, CPM, for the opportunity.
Thank you very much to Mr. M.N.M. Ziad for giving us an insightful presentation on how Sri Lanka can uplift its economic competitiveness. With that, we are ready now to delve right into the panel discussion on the topic of driving Economic Complexity Index for Sri Lanka. Remember, if you have questions, please ensure you use the QR code and send it in. Our moderator will be happy to take on your questions. With that being said, let me now hand over control to the session chair and the moderator for this segment. Please put your hands together for Ms. Indivari Amuvatta.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good day to you, esteemed guests, distinguished speakers and panelists, and thank you very much to the organizers as well. You've heard the theme. We'll be discussing driving economic complexity index for Sri Lanka. And as Sri Lanka, we talk about today, finds itself at a crossroads in the journey towards sustainable growth, grappling with multifaceted challenges in the economic landscape. Today, we'll be talking about how Sri Lanka can navigate these challenges and also talk about key factors that will help drive sustainable economic growth. I'd also like to invite you to have your questions ready, have it sent to us so that we can manage the limited time. First, I would like to turn to our panelist, Mr. Nadaraja, Satish Nadaraja. With your experience in finance based in the UAE and also your experience and exposure to finance, I'd like to maybe, along with your opening remarks, ask you what key enablers or factors will help drive Sri Lanka's economic complexity and also resilience in our path to fostering sustainable growth. It will be interesting to hear financial enablers as well from you.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a great question. Now, let's look at the entire economic complexity index in the world, right? The countries who are really ranking in the top, like Germany, Japan, South Korea, right? The important factor there is they are so diversified. Their economy is diversified. Their export sector is diversified. So that is the reason why they are sitting on the top list. Now, whereas Sri Lanka, we are primarily focused on traditional export, tea and apparel. So we need to convert this to a larger value-added export segment so that we can move up in the ladder. So to facilitate this purely from the finance standpoint of view, there are certain critical things. The first is the overall, the macroeconomic and the regulatory stability. That is really very critical for any countries. Now, we spoke about other countries like Vietnam. They came up, especially in last 2 decades, extremely well because they managed to have very strong macroeconomic regulatory framework for their country. So that has really helped them. So that is one of the key ones. The second one is the overall the capital infrastructure and the access to the finance as well. That is something, of course, we are going through a kind of tough path currently, So the government is kind of prioritizing certain things towards, we are just postponing whatever the loan payment is going to come. So they will be ready for that. But there's a huge responsibility with private sector. Private sector should really coordinate this well with the industry associations so that they can kind of make sure the overall the regulatory framework is kind of assigned to each industry so that the industry can really grow much faster. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to have the same question with the rest of the panelists as well. Along with your opening remarks, we'll start with Vikum here. Along with your opening remarks, if you can talk about and share with us what you believe, in your view, would be maybe sum it up to 3 key enablers that will drive our economy, especially with your expertise in wellness tourism.
Thank you. To me, there's only one thing. If you're talking of economic growth, we need to invest. And to invest, we have to have savings. And Sri Lanka does not have savings. That's the bottom line. Right? So, which means we need to bring in FDIs for investments. Now, the question is, do we have an environment, that enabling environment to bring in investments, to bring in FDIs? I don't think so. Right? Successive governments, their strategy to build our income, government income, has been just taxing. And even the socialist-backed government has increased taxes, unfortunately. And that's the reality. So increasing taxes is not a strategy. Anyone can do that. If you increase taxes, you get more revenue. There's no strategy. There's no thinking about it. So, and also the fact that why we keep increasing taxes is to subsidize, not growth, but to subsidize corruption, to subsidize incompetencies, and inefficiencies. This tax is not going to get invested in anywhere. So who will come and invest in Sri Lanka? Right? There are so many from my industry now investing in Maldives, but they are not investing in Sri Lanka. So that's the reality. All these frameworks and theories, it's good, but that's just not addressing the gorilla in the room. The gorilla in the room is how do we expand the economy and make money from expanding the economy rather than taxing existing businesses, because that is just deterring investments that is solely needed for us to move forward to create economic growth. That's it. So even from my point of view, we have, I think, created an X factor. I think about 50% of or 60% of my guests come to Sri Lanka because of Santani. They don't go anywhere else. So we have created something like that. But since then, I have been invited to establish Santanis in Oman by the government of Oman, by the government of Saudi Arabia, private investors in Morocco, some entities in India, and there's a lot more in the pipeline. But I don't have much of a desire to invest in Sri Lanka, because I sell, let's say, $1,000 right now these days, about $1,000 a night. But after taxes and commissions and everything, I'm actually taking into my books only about $600. And from the profits I make, I have to pay another 30%. So why should I invest? I know I have gratitude about Sri Lanka, but at the end of the day, I have to look after myself, my family, the people who are working for me. That's the first priority. I mean, that's a reality. We need to talk about that. Otherwise, we are just talking of theories. We are not going anywhere.
Thank you. Dr. Tilini, as the central bank, the regulator, how do you look at this?
Thank you, Indivare. Good afternoon, everyone. I think the key enabling factors will vary across the time and the space. Those things will be vary across the industries and countries. And the list will be very long. But given the time constraint, I would like to pick 3 factors from 3 segments: productivity from economics, and access to finance from finance, and leadership from management. So even in the empirical studies show that in Sri Lanka's productivity is very low. The complexity of economic growth comes from two main sources. One is the factor endowments, that is capital and labor, and the other one is the productivity. So as shown in the empirical studies, Sri Lanka's productivity is very low. If we want to increase the productivity, we have to allocate resources efficiently. We have to do the optimal allocation of resources because we know that the resources are very scarce. And the other one is, the other thing is the high technology diffusion. We have to accept the technology very quickly. And the second one is access to finance. If you want to create a financial inclusion, or if the investment climate want to be very conducive, everyone should have access to finance. For that, the rules and regulations will be very flexible, and people can access to finance with a very minimum transaction cost. And the other one is the leadership. I consider this as the factor, as the X factor, because it is very important. The leaders should set the tone at the top. They should be competent. They should have the integrity. They should have professional competencies, and they should have the professionalism. They should possess both technical and non-technical skills. And we have to remember that the leaders should treat humans as humans. They should not be treated as, humans should not be treated as capital. Because we know the employees are leaving leaders. They are not leaving the institutions. They are not leaving the teams. If you talk to your mind and heart, you may recall the reasons that you left your organization. That is because of the leaders who didn't treat humans as humans. Thank you.
Talal, I think as an economist, you'd have something to add here, along with your opening remarks. If you can, from leadership to innovation, how do we address these challenges?
Sure. Thank you, Indivari. So I'll just, with my opening remarks, I'll mention that this topic is quite important, especially the one with the Harvard professor, Ricardo, because we are at an important juncture when it comes to Sri Lanka. So in 2028, most of our external debt repayments will start. But the thing is, like, we are seeing positive signs. The president is expecting 5% growth, and last year we recorded 5%. So this is all good. But the problem is that in 2028, we will have to additionally have reserves to pay back most of the external loans. But when the economy grows, our imports will also be growing up to 2028. So we are getting a little bit squeezed on that end. But our exports are, as we know, it's still largely reliant on traditional things like apparels, tea, rubber, coconut. The thing with apparels is that it's good and we have to be thankful, but countries such as South Korea, Taiwan, they did this in the 70s, 80s, and now they have moved on, but we are still there. And apparels, I mean, it's $5 billion exports, but still we need to import $3 billion to get that. So the next net export is just $2 billion. So we have to expand, and there's a fast closing window. And since the topic is on trade, I'll say that just, you see difference between India before 91 and after 91. We see now India is the fastest growing large economy in the world, or China before 78 and after. It's the key difference before 91 and after 91 was not, I mean, there were a large number of factors like Dr. Manmohan Singh did, like not corruption or these. The key one was just trade reforms, opening the economy. So, I mean, Sri Lanka too did it, but we didn't do it in a full way, wholehearted way. And also, giving the example of, because we are in an IMF program and there is some pushback against it, but we have to notice that India transformed due to Dr. Manmohan Singh, but the policies they implemented were World Bank and IMF policies. So that credit has to go. And coming to the 3 points, the first thing for us to have a more diversified export, would be digitization. So right now, that reduces corruption, complexities, ease of doing business. So anyone can move into a new sector. That's what we need at the moment. And the second point is foreign direct investment. So here when we talk about diversifying exports, I hardly hear the component about FDI. So we usually look at FDI as something to get money inside the country or create a few jobs. But FDI is essential for exports because the stats are 64% of global exports is done by multinational companies. And if you look at knowledge-intensive exports, 82% of knowledge-intensive exports are done by multinational companies. Like look at Taiwan, one of the largest exporters of automobiles, but they don't have a Thai brand. It's usually Japanese brands. So that's how Taiwan came in. Largest exporter of, for example, laptops and others previously, but you don't find Thai brands. What they did was they did it for US companies. They learned the technology and then they became big. Like Costa Rica with Intel. They brought in a company at a loss. It created the suppliers, everything. And then even after Intel moved out, they had the ecosystem to make on their own. So that is what Sri Lanka, we should not underestimate the power of FDI. And lastly, education. Education is absolutely essential because right now that is something that is needed in order to innovate. That is a key skill because even if you look at Sri Lanka, we rank very high on humanitarian studies, but quite low on STEM. So STEM, if compared to India, India produces per million 8 times more STEM graduates than us. So this is something that was essential for countries such as South Korea and others. You know, STEM graduates. We need to produce, one study by IPS shows that one of the biggest problems is that we produce graduates that with skills that are not entirely needed by the industry. So sort of a collaboration between universities, the government and the corporate sector is essential. Thank you.
Thank you, Talal. I'd also like to connect with Mr. Suranga Herath, who's joining us virtually. I'm not sure if we can see Suranga here, but I'll ask you. Yes, hi. So my question is, now we've heard about the challenges in terms of creating a fostering, enabling environment for foreign direct investments, and also how the innovation ecosystem can be enabled in Sri Lanka. How would you give us some insight into how Sri Lanka can look at navigating these challenges going forward?
Thank you. I think it's a very pertinent question, and I do agree with everyone who spoke up to this point. I've been listening since the start of this session. I guess without long-term vision, without policy, a clear roadmap, that's essential, and that's something we've never had. And as Vikum said, we're looking at things with a very narrow, short-term sort of a mindset. We don't have a plan to grow the economy and then attract FDIs. And as Talal also brilliantly explained, I think it is a really important point, really important juncture to change few things and make sure we are known for those changes, and then to make sure those changes are trusted, because we've lost credibility over the last 30, 40 years of doing very haphazard changes, mostly for political reasons. And then when we went down the road economically, we had to do things, just for survival. But now I think we need to showcase the world that we are serious and we are long-term and we have good governance. We have promised a lot of things on the governance side, which is a plus. And I think my take on this whole thing is, if you combine all of what we said, all of what this panel and the speakers said, I think it's pretty aligned. But what we are lacking is that branding for Sri Lanka, right? I think Talal was brilliant in, bringing the Taiwan example also, how they built that semiconductor industry, for example. And that's the credibility, that's the branding that they were known for decades, right? And Sri Lanka, it doesn't have that. It is not just due to the lack of vision and lack of policy and lack of roadmap. It is because we have been not using our best resource, our best asset proper. So this is why I still think, while all of what was spoken is true, we had to get, at least we had to take baby steps, and to move on, we need to really repurpose Sri Lanka first, while the other things, because we are in our IMF program, we are in a deep hole, so nothing's going to take us out, and FDIs are not going to come easy. It has to come from whatever we are doing now. This is why even the Harvard Growth Labs, the recommendation of the parsimonious approach is looking at all of this, practicality. Because there are entrepreneurs now, there is some amount of saving and money in the economy. So how do we kind of use it proper, repurpose ourselves, rebrand ourselves, and at least have a good 2-3 years of going in the right direction. And that should probably raise our profile and credibility to attract FDIs to get us proper diversification. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you very much. And in the interest of time, I will go to the next round of questions, but about 2 minutes each to our panelists. I'd like to turn to Mr. Ziad. Your experience in Oman and also your expertise. I'd like to hear how, given the growing global push for digital transformation especially, what opportunities we see for Sri Lanka to enhance digital economy, boost exports through innovative technology, and also the most critical steps the country should take to integrate advanced technology when we talk about industrial sectors and improve economic complexity index.
Yeah. Thank you. To attract FDIs from technology point of view, because I am in the tech background, so as our president of CPM mentioned that there is a lot of youth in the rural areas who have talent, but there is no guidance. So if you see in the tech industry, there is so many opportunities which can be catered from anywhere in the world. And there are already platforms available in the net, like freelancing websites, where you can get projects and you can earn through foreign currencies. So this is one area where the country can focus on educating these platforms, because many will not be aware of, okay, how to approach, what to do, from where do I start. So the guidance for such initiatives. Plus the adaptation of technology. So AI, generative AI is, frankly speaking, is now like history, because there is a lot more into AI which has come in, like generative AI, reactive AI, operative AI. There's a lot of branches, and every day it's evolving. So how fast is Sri Lanka on adapting these skills? Because other nations are adapting, and automated services are being provided. So how we are capturing this? Then also, along with AI, the other two factors which most of the foreign investors see is like, okay, what is the trustworthiness? So trustworthiness from AI point of view is, from IT point of view, is through blockchain. So you have to have blockchain involved in your businesses to show the transparency. So that will also attract the investors. These are key jargons, like investors like to listen, like AI, blockchain, and then they might ask, okay, from cybersecurity point of view, like how well are you protected from attacks? So I know in Sri Lanka, the investment in cybersecurity is at very least. Okay, the banks and all those sectors, they will be having it. But if you see in general, the investment on that is neglected until it is an attack or until something goes wrong. And then, oh, what happened? Okay, we have to invest on an antivirus license. We have to have a firewall and all those things. So it is how we establish our businesses and same, like how we market it. So we market our business, means we market Sri Lanka. So how we market Sri Lanka as a brand to the external world.
Thank you very much for that. And Mr. Nadaraja, I have a couple of questions for you. How do you think Sri Lanka can enhance financial infrastructure to better support small and medium-sized enterprises as we talk about export competitiveness? And given the current fiscal challenges Sri Lanka faces, how can businesses, government collaborate to optimize financial resources for sustainable economic growth we were talking about, and the role of financial institutions in fostering innovation and supporting emerging industries? I know this is a many to respond to, but 2 minutes if you can.
Yeah, thank you. Let's start with the SME. SME is the backbone of any economy. Now, let me compare with UAE and Sri Lanka. One of the things is the ease of doing business. In Sri Lanka, in UAE, everything is, as Ziad said, it's all digitalized. It's very easy, transparent process in place. Anyone can easily start a business within weeks. So that kind of infrastructure is required for Sri Lanka. Here, we all know, if you want to establish a company, it takes ages. So this is very critical. And then for the SME sector again, the excess of finance is critical as well. Whereas again in UAE example, there are various financing solutions available for SME sector. Supply chain financing, blockchain related financing. These are very interesting because they also kind of sector the SME sector itself, and they support various critical aspects within the SME sector so that they can really grow. So these are the clear growth path for SMEs in any of the countries. And in terms of the overall innovative the financing solution, we have to seriously think about AI-based financing solution. The credit cost must be calculated through the AI-based systems. These are available across the countries in the world. So we must seriously think every day is a new day. Tomorrow when we wake up, there will be a new AI solution available. So we need to be really, take that kind of very fast step and take very bold decisions so that we can get there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now I'd like to turn to Vikum, learning from your approach to tourism, pioneering wellness as a concept in Sri Lanka. We'd like to look at today's context as tourism is booming in almost every destination. And for the first time, arrivals are beginning to surpass pre-pandemic levels. But with this rapid surge, we see destinations scrambling to have carve a piece out of this. But for Sri Lanka, what do we really need to ensure that we have the best for longer term revenue generation, and also as a key driver of Sri Lanka's economy? How should Sri Lanka look at our strategies?
Thank you. I think if you look at net FDI or foreign exchange earnings, tourism is number 2 at this point. Because in apparel, most of the money is gone out to get the raw materials. But we are still not recognized as an export industry, whereas IT which is generating less than $1 billion at this point, is still recognized as a export generating or export industry. So there is a bit of a misconception from the government as to the importance or the significance of tourism not to come. It's already playing that. I mean, tourism essentially is the one that bridged the gap since the financial crisis. But also there's another factor to it. As I said, no one is really investing in tourism right now, even though all these numbers are happening. There's not much since the end of the war that has happened. There's no real private equity type investments that has come, like no Blackstone, no BlackRock, no Vanguard, no family offices that has come. The 2 main investments that came through is Shangri-La and ITC from outside, but those are their own investments. That's not traditionally how the tourism industry grows. So why is the question? We talk so much about tourism, but really nothing has happened, honestly, in my point of view, given our potential. Right? So the question is, it's not generating enough return to the investors. If you look at most hotels, if you look at all the publicly listed hotels, 99% of them are not making money, right? So then the question is, how are we talking tourism is growing, it's contributing so much of money to the economy, but actual players are not making money. And because of that, no one is investing. And that's because in Sri Lanka, the cost of construction is much higher than all our competitors around us. So when your cost of construction is high, you have to sell at a higher rate to get a return. But then when you try to sell at a higher rate, Thailand is selling the same product at much less. India is selling the same product much less. Malaysia is selling the same product at a lesser price. So then we can't compete. So now these are some of the two things that we really need to understand, and why our cost of construction is high is a result of the non-acknowledgement from the governments throughout of the importance of this industry. So why it's high is because of most of our raw materials in construction are imported or semi-imported, and there are duty structures along that. So if you can take that out, and if you can bring our cost of production to less than our competitors, then we can sell a product, similar product, at a lower price and compete. And that's the only way. But then there are other things where we are lacking innovation, like we innovated in bringing in a new product. There's a absolutely low-hanging fruit in retail tourism or shopping tourism, right? There's 250 million middle class that has come in India. They all now wants to do some shopping outside of India, go for the brands, like entry-level brands. They go to Dubai and Singapore. Even our people go to Dubai and Singapore to buy like watches. And why do they go there? It's only one factor, it's because it's cheaper. There's nothing else. They just go there, buy the thing, spend a couple of days, come back. So, and why are we not cheaper? Because we are charging taxes on these things. And if you actually, and it's a very easy thing, it's just a gazette, you can take out taxes overnight. And then we communicate the fact that, okay, Sri Lanka has the cheapest Rolex in the world. And then our cost structures, operating cost structures are anyway less than Singapore and Dubai, because our rent, our labor, all that stuff is much cheaper than Dubai or Singapore. We can offer it at a much lower price, and then we can bring the whole, this South Asian burgeoning economy people come into Sri Lanka. They will spend, instead of about $100, $180 that they spend per night today, just by buying a $10,000 watch, they will contribute, almost 10,000 times. And then someone who comes, spend a $10,000 watch is going to spend maybe $5,000 over a 3-night period. That can transform this economy single-handedly. We should not depend on one sector, but right now I think there's no other low-hanging fruit other than tourism. And these are some of the examples. I don't have the time to go on and on, but there are so many more, like what we did in wellness tourism. We were talking about identity. Can we create an identity into IT? No, we can't. It's already taken. There were, in that chart Suranga was showing, ITC was there. Finance and economic banking were there. Tourism in general is there. But how about Healing Island? We have a history of healing from King Buddhadasa to Ramayana, where the Hanuman took a whole medicinal mountain back here. We haven't done anything about it. I think we are the first to kind of leverage some of those factors in creating a product, in creating a brand. But I think there's an opportunity there. I haven't explored it in detail yet, but that's something I think that no one has taken at this point, that we can create our own.
I also like to turn to Dr. Thilini here. How, if you can share with us how the regulator can support here in bringing in more simpler policy and clearer policy, also supporting lending when we talk about small and medium enterprises and the banking sector as well.
Yeah, I think those factors related to the access to finance or the financial inclusion. When it comes to financial inclusion, all stakeholders in the society have to play a role. Central bank is just a regulator. Central bank is building the regulatory framework and supervising the registered financial institutions and bank with the central bank. So actually central bank regulates those institutions because those institutions are accepting public deposits. Those institutions are do lending by using the deposits that they are mobilizing from the public. So central bank has a responsibility to protect the depositor. That is why central bank is setting a regulatory framework for the registered financial institutions with the central bank. At the moment, there are some unregulated financial institutions, but for lending, there are no any regulations. Anyone can lend. That is why there are like lot of lending institutions all around the country. Those are mushrooming, but at the moment there is no regulatory framework for those institutions. Actually, a bill or the act has been prepared and it is now on hold, and I am sure at any moment in the recent future it will be enacted. That act will cover the unregulated lending institutions. But I know in Sri Lanka, like more than 50% is operated in the informal sector. So those people need money, they should have access to finance. I think with the enactment of this act, there should be a proper regulatory framework for the lending institutions. If there is no any regulatory framework, those lenders will not do a justice to the borrower. That is why someone is trying to probably, it will be taken up by the government and they will establish a different authority from the central bank to regulate those institutions. But it is, yes, everyone should have access to finance. The financial inclusion program should be targeted to everyone. So with that, everyone will be able to start their own business, or they will be able to get whatever the loans that they are planning to get. But even though central bank is not regulating those informal sector institutions, central bank is on a continuous basis conducting different awareness sessions, and we are issuing press notices. At the same time, anyone can access the social media of the central bank so they can get more information. And also, we have a concern about the lending rates. Earlier, lending rates were very high because lending rate depends on the deposit rates of the country. Therefore, now you will see the deposit rates are gradually coming down. Along with that, lending rates will also go down. I think now those rates has come down to a reasonable level. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I also encourage you to send us your questions to the panelists. We're just about to wrap up the session. Talal, I think I have some key areas to discuss with you. Productivity and the role of policy making as we are on the cusp of economic transformation. Whether Sri Lanka is at the maximum level of development that the present productive capacities can deliver. And if so, what are our options?
Sure. Thank you. Regarding the productivity of the economy, or where we can, this is a question that I always answer with saying that the question itself is not right. Which sector should we go into? If you look at it, especially related to the topic, for example, Japan in 1950, after the Second World War, when they wanted to develop, they didn't focus on what sectors to focus on. They focused on what sectors to shut down. So, to overall, for example, if I say a company sells 10 different products and 2 or 3 products are failing, not selling that much, the company doesn't decide to start producing 3 more additional things. They focus on these 3, try to restructure or do something marketing or something if it fails to close down those divisions. I mean, that is the thing with Sri Lanka. And what I wanted to example, a very, very good comparison would be the two countries, Chile and Sri Lanka. I mean, in the 70s, we opened our economy at the same time. We were among the two countries from the developing world to open the economy at the same time. Today, Chile is an advanced economy. Sri Lanka, as we know, is a bankrupt economy. The reason was that Chile, I mean, most countries we see, we do free trade agreements. We reduce tariffs if the other side also reduced. What Chile did was interesting. They unilaterally brought down tariffs. So even if the other country is charging 50%, we don't care. We bring it down to 6%. Of course, what happened was there are certain sectors like their footwear sectors all got wiped out because Chinese imports started coming in. But they had new industries that came in. They found the advantage they had. That is where Sri Lanka needs to, because at the end of the day, Sri Lanka is just 22 million people, 65,000 square feet, and an $80 billion economy. There's only limited things we can do. So we have to prioritize which areas we will get the maximum profit out of and where we have an advantage. And so that's something about, I heard the other speakers also talking about the cost that is high if you want to be competitive. But an answer would be trade liberalization. So that is sort of an immediate step where we can bring it down. As I mentioned, once you allow imports, of course, there will be some losers, but the resources can be allocated elsewhere for exports. Like examples are potatoes, sugar. I mean, these are things that you can import from India for a much lower price. And these play a role in the larger sector. So as prices of most products, we put barriers and try to produce internally, where the quality may not be good or the prices are high, it eventually results in the cost of living goes up. We have to buy groceries at a higher price, shoes, trousers at a higher price. At the end of the day, the cost of labor goes up, cost of business also goes up. So there again, we come at a disadvantage. The other is tariffs. Even Dr. Indrajit Kumaraswamy was speaking a couple of weeks ago. He mentioned, for example, tariffs. 80% of Sri Lanka's imports are intermediate and capital goods. So only 20% is consumption goods. So when you have high tariffs, not even tariffs, even non-tariffs like para-tariffs, cess, PAL, what it happens is most of our exports are at a very thin margin. So when the import costs go up for most of the materials, we automatically lose out. So these are certain areas where we can do to become more competitive. And as far as exports go, another key point that I keep saying is we always talk about what Sri Lanka has and what we can do. But the point is also, when you do sales, it's not about what you have and where you find the markets. It's about what the world wants and then producing according to it. So this comes to the thing, especially related to the index we're talking about, is the whole model of trade Sri Lanka didn't catch on to. We still talk about certain products where we can put out a product that is finished for the consumer and sell it. But about 70% of global trade is intra-industry trade, trade within industries. So this is where Southeast Asia has capitalized on. For example, 70% of global trade is supplying value chains of multinational companies, like Apple's supply chains, Samsung, or even larger things like Nestle. Nestle's products, maybe some parts would be imported from Thailand, some from Mexico. So this is where we need to find the niche. And this is where we really miss the bus as far as Sri Lanka is concerned. So coming back to diversification, I feel that not just diversifying or going into new things, but we have to diversify, change the entire model of how we do it. Not just new products, but focusing on niche products of global supply chains. This will enable us. And the other thing is also we need to find, the second part is export markets itself. So we are heavily dependent on the US and Europe for our exports. So especially with Donald Trump talking about these tariff wars, he has put a team together to look into each and every country where the US has a deficit on. And unfortunately, or fortunately for us, but unfortunately at this time that he's a president, it's that we have a surplus with the US. So that is going to come to his eyes very soon. And if he does something, that's going to be quite consequential for our country. So that is something, it's interesting that the foreign ministry is putting a team to study into this. They may make a few demands for us, so that's something that we have to look into. And Indi, you asked a couple of things, or forgot the two follow-ups?
Unfortunately, we don't have much time.
Right.
I don't see any questions here, I assume I've asked all the questions on behalf of the audience today. But before we wrap up, very quickly, I'd like to bring in Suranga as well for some closing remarks, if you're still joining us virtually.
Hi, Indivari. No, brilliant discussion, and I think there was nothing we could disagree with. I guess forums like this will be richer if we can kind of put together these ideas, so not to add to the already, quite interesting, important, list of ideas already there. I guess my request from CPM is to, put this together, because it's now or never, right? If we restructure our exports, if I use Talal's closing remarks, if we remodel, we need to remodel the whole thing. And then there is no one way. But I don't think we can continue the way we've been doing things. That should be the message. It has to be new. It has to be incremental. It has to be radical or parsimonious or whatever changes also that's needed to come in. The business, doing business index, the enabling factors, and, having a broad tax, policy, not a narrow-minded tax policy of, killing the already small, tiny sectors. And I'm, quite surprised when, Vikum spoke about high-end tourism not making money. That's really a crime, because we are promoting that, we are talking about that, but if that's also struggling, then where do we go from there? So I guess, the returns will be rich if we put these ideas together, and CPM and, all of us together push for reforms, and then, make something out of these discussions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much to the panel, the speakers, and to our esteemed guests for listening to us.
Thank you. We'd like to invite all of our panelists to please remain. We do have tokens of appreciation to present as we appreciate and extend our gratitude to them for such a thought-provoking session. To do the honors now of presenting the tokens, I'd like to invite on stage Professor Lakshman R. Vatawala, Dr. Samantha Ratnaikar, Mr. Roshan Kolas, Dr. Nirmal De Silva, and Mr. Dilshan R. Sukularatna. We'd like your presence as we now begin with extending our gratitude to our panelists on stage. We'd like to first begin by presenting a token to our session chairperson and moderator for this conversation. We've had Miss Indivari Amuwatta, the head of English News at Ada Derana, as one of our moderators for today. So let's put our hands together, ladies and gentlemen, for our session chairperson. Thank you to Miss Indivari Amuwatta for being our session chair. Our next speaker has been Mr. Suranga Herath, who's unfortunately not physically present, so we move on to Mr. M.N.M. Ziad, Chief Executive Officer, Innovative Smart Solutions, Oman. Let's put our hands together, ladies and gentlemen, for our speaker, Mr. M.N.M. Ziad. We then move on to the panelists. We start with Mr. Satish Nadaraja, Executive Vice President Finance, Al Ghurair Foods LLC, Dubai. Put your hands together, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Satish Nadaraja. Our next panelist, Dr. Tilini Sumudu Kumari, Deputy Director, Department of Supervision of Non-Bank Financial Institutions, Central Bank of Sri Lanka. Our next panelist, Mr. Talal Rafi, Economist, Director Consulting at Ernst & Young. Let's hear your applause, Mr. Talal Rafi. And we had Mr. Vikum Navagamawage, Founder and CEO, Santani Wellness Resorts. Let's hear your applause for him. And with that, we'd like to use this opportunity now to have a quick group photograph with all of the dignitaries and panelists on stage. So we'd like to request you to please face the photographers and give them a nice big smile as we capture this moment. This is our session on Driving Economic Complexity Index for Sri Lanka. And I'm sure you all agree it's been quite a thought-provoking session. So with that being said, we now have a group photo.